Good day and welcome to the March 2021 Xenia series of seminars in the anthropology of travel, tourism, and pilgrimage. My name is Jeff DeVito. I'm one of the co-coordinators of this series. And in a moment, I will pass on to Safet to introduce our speaker today, Shorsh. I am in New Hampshire, and I have been in New Hampshire for a longer period of time than I've been in New Hampshire since, well, I was a much younger man. And I've been out in the forest, out in the snow, and have really had a lot of opportunity to think about anthropology, which is a nice position to be in. And those that call and those that Zoom consistently have asked, what is anthropology? Is this anthropology? What are you learning about anthropology in this time? And so rather than an academic discussion of what anthropology is, because I would be silly and foolish to do that in front of such a distinguished group of anthropologists, I want to prepare an emotional response to what anthropology is to guide our way today before Safet's introduction and Shorsh's presentation. So for me, when someone says, what is anthropology? I say, what is anthropology to me? For me, anthropology is humbling. It's a continual reminder of diversity, not only in culture, in heritage and production, but also in emotion and circumstance. Anthropology is a doorway opening to a building. It's a path leading into a forest. And for Led Zeppelin fans, it's a stairway to a heaven, where I am, even for a moment, a privileged guest, fortunate enough to see the hearts, minds, joys, and ones who were previously, and might have always been, strangers. Anthropology is a reminder of how small and self-centered I am. Anthropology is an invitation to share, to feel, to love, and to cry. Anthropology is a temple for me to contemplate the big questions and remember, just when I seem to think I know it all, that I, as with all of us, really know nothing. Anthropology for me is about trust. It's about honor. It's about ambassadorship and about love. It's a tightrope walking between connection and distance. For me, anthropology is life, a life that becomes more intertwined and complicated and full of appreciation and guilt and compassion and beauty and wonder and family. Anthropology is friendship, and anthropology is heartbreak. Anthropology is here, anthropology is there, anthropology is you, and anthropology is me. And just maybe, anthropology is home. So with that thought, I want to pass on to Safet to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Welcome back, or welcome if you're joining us for the first time in the Xenia series. We have yet another wonderful treat for you this evening, or today, this morning. You're joining from different parts of the world. Now, as many of you know, the Xenia series grew out of a summer program, our summer program, in the anthropology of travel, tourism, and pilgrimage. And what connects these three topics for us is the perduring, if elusive, notion of home, which Jeff sort of touched upon in his intro. Most of us try to write about it, but always knowing in our writing that words are not enough to tackle this topic. Now, I first met the work of Shorsh Saleh in the Migration Museum in London on one of our summer school field trips. And for those of you who do not know, the Migration Museum is a wonderful, one can easily say heroic project, still without a permanent home in London. Please support it in any way you can. I will share a link to their website in a minute in the chat room. Now, Shorsh's piece that I first saw there was a curious sculpture. I think the title was just Waiting. It was a set of chairs sinking or rising from the ground, depending on how you perceive them. Shorsh described it as relating to the experience of his application to remain in the UK. I understood this through the lives of my interlocutors in southeastern Bosnia who returned home after ethnic cleansing. They waited for something that was in the past as a way to deal with the unwanted present. The waging of these Bosnian returnees lingered between despair, coping, and hope. So I saw these chairs by Shorsh Saleh as moving up and down, as well as standing still, sinking and rising, as part of the negotiation of the everyday. As you will see today, Shorsh engages with traditional forms of art, like miniature painting and carpet weaving. But in so doing, he challenges these forms to respond to a world where these traditions are very nearly extinct, a world in which patterns and colors, forms of social diversity, history, and cultural production barely survive under the immense oppression of exclusivist political programs. Such violence seeks to homogenize everything, peroxide difference into non-existence. Like the Borg, Star Trek, I don't know if you're fans of Star Trek, but you know the Borg warns you will be assimilated, and these programs as well seek to assimilate, to homogenize. And a lot of what all of us do in response is to show that resistance is not futile, to again reference Star Trek. This is one possible reading of Shorsh's work titled Displacement from 2019, a carpet from which the colorful patterns are disappearing, withdrawing, fading. Or again, if you read it in a different direction, they're appearing, materializing, resisting. In one interview, Shorsh has called Kurdish Jaf carpets the highest form of visual art we produce. What we read in his carpets are sites of struggle over some future plateaus. In another of his carpets titled Destruction, also from 2019, patterns are breaking, collapsing, and amidst the fragmentation, the symbols don't know where to go. Likewise, his miniatures are breaking from the margins. Shorsh's art moves between the abstract qualities of natural pigment and ancestral patterns and the scenes of loss, of home, as a ghostly reminder of the very real disappearance of rich and old traditions and relations sublimated in these symbols and materials. Now, if you haven't done so, I would urge you to explore the art of Shorsh Saleh, remarkable and dramatic and eloquent. I will share his website with you also in the chat room. Shorsh Saleh was born in Kurdistan. He completed an MA in Traditional Arts at the Prince's School of Traditional Arts in London, where he has been teaching carpet weaving since 2015. He has also been teaching at the Museum of Islamic Art in Doha since 2017. Shorsh has exhibited in Germany, Iraqi Kurdistan, Lebanon, UK, and the USA. His work was part of the Prince and Patron exhibition at Buckingham Palace in 2018. His solo exhibitions include Remembering Yezidis at the Faculty of Human Sciences, Iraqi Kurdistan in 2015, and Always Color, Always Rain in Iraqi Kurdistan in 2000. Shorsh was also artist in residence at the Migration Museum London in April 2019. His works are held in the Royal Collection Trust, the British Museum, the Bagari Foundation, and the Islamic Museum in Malaysia. He is currently showing his works in the Refugees Forced to Flee exhibition at the Imperial War Museum, London, until May 2021. The title of his talk today is No Friends But the Mountains. Shorsh, we are so delighted to welcome you to the Xenia series. Over to you. Thank you.
Thanks for you guys. That was an incredible introduction. Thanks a lot. I hope I deserve it. And thanks for everybody who's signing in today. And I just wonder how many minutes I have to talk, just to be more clear.
40, 45. We will enjoy it as long as you are willing to speak to us.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm just going to the talk, basically. I have some images to share, so if you don't mind, give me 1 second. I'll just. Okay. Everybody see it now? Yeah, probably. Okay, I'll start with my talk. Probably my talk will be covering this exhibition. It's happened now in Imperial War Museum. My show is a part of the bigger show, which is called Refugee Forced to Flee. At the beginning, I got the email from the Imperial War Museum to send my proposal for this show, and that was kind of delighting news for me. So the theme I have to choose, which is 3 themes, there was a home, an agency, and identity. So I have to choose one of them and send my proposal. So without any hesitate, I chose home. So I made my proposal and I sent it to them. After a few weeks, I got an invitation to go there in person and talk about the project. That was exciting. And I went there, having a meeting with these lovely pupils there. And they liked my proposal, but they suggested for me that it's better I take identity rather than home as a theme. And then, of course, I say yes, because that was a good opportunity for me to be there. So I say, okay, I will accept it. But then when I came out, I just realized I'm facing a kind of very, very confusing and complicated question for me, because as a Kurdish people, we have a very, very complicated and confusing topic when we say identity. So I like to share this thought about identity with you. As you see, there's a map of Middle East, Iran, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. But there's a darker shade there, which is covering the 4 country. We call it Kurdistan. I am from Kurdistan, but the Kurdistan does not exist. So my problem with identity is whenever, especially when you leave home, you have this problem. Because whenever you face anyone, they say, where do you come from? You say Kurdistan, but Kurdistan does not exist. So most of the people, they don't know. So in the end, I have to give a lecture just to explain where I come from. So for me, when I choose the identity, that was a kind of very challenging topic for me. And I knew I had to face a lot of memory things for me to make sure I can cover the topic. And the title, No Friends But the Mountain, it's a quite sad topic, actually. But it's a Kurdish saying. Actually, it came through the experience, because after the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and this area was divided according to the interest of the French and British Empire. So the Kurdish was not accounted. So they divided the area. And that is the root of around 100 years conflict between the Kurdish resistance and the center governments. So that is basically covering a lot of problem for Kurdish people. Like for us, if you say in Turkey, if you say I'm Kurdish, you will in trouble, basically, just to identify yourself as a Kurdish. In Iran as well, in Iraq, we have faced a lot of problem with the Iraqi government for around 50, 60 years. anyway, so No Friends But the Mountains, it's based on the experience of Kurdish people that all the friends we have in the end, they live in us. And the only place we can protect ourselves is the mountains, which is this area, the Kurdish situated, Kurdistan situated. It's full of the high mountains and very, very rough and tough. So in the end, that will become a place, the mountains become a trusted place for Kurdish people throughout this 100 years. Anyway, let's go back to the topic. And my proposal was about to making 5 miniature painting and 2 carpets. And as Safid mentioned it, I am a miniature painter and carpet designer, and I do some other part of art, sometimes sculpture and things. But for this particular project, I chose miniature painting because miniature painting is allow you to tell the story in more details. Because historically, miniature painting was invented to illustrate the books, to tell the story of the kings, of the mythical character, of the heroes. So I say that would be great if I use same medium, but for the very modern person from the Middle East and telling the story of someone, because in the end, I covered the story of myself, but I don't feel like it's more egoistic. It's more about all these people I live in home. So that's more about that, but I see it through my perspective. So this image, you see the first miniature painting, which is called Division. Actually, this painting is based on 2 photos, 2 historical photos. One of them is, you can find it in archive in, I think even it's in Imperial War Museum. There's a few planes, they bombard the Iraqi Kurdistan in 1920s to force the Kurdish people to join the Iraqi government. That was the beginning of the division. So that was this is actually exists, this British planes bombarding the town of Soleimani and this area. And the bottom part is actually based on the photo, which is 3 Turkish officers beheading a Kurdish tribal leader in Dersim area in 1937-38. But then I mixed the image, I changed the image. So I use a 3 figure, which is representing these nations we are under their control, which is the Turkish and Arab and Persians. And the deer in the carpet, in a symbolic meaning in carpet, deer is a represent of victims. So in here, I made this beheaded deer there to represent the Kurdish as a victim of this historical events. So the first part was about the history of what is going on in a Kurdish area, which is where I come from. And second painting it's called Despair. And this is about my childhood, where I come from, exactly the area where I come from, which is during the 1980s. It was because our town was close to the border. So there was the Iraqi-Irani border. So we are basically always under the threat and under the bombardment and things. So each house, basically, they have a basement to hide themselves during the bomb. And in 1988, there's something I want to mention. Actually, today is 16th of March, which is, it's the anniversary of the Halabja, 16th of March of 1988, when the Halabja was chemically bombarded. And Halabja was like around 30 kilometers far from my town. And it was like thousands of people are dying with the gas. Most of them are just a family people, just a woman, kids, elderly, all kind of people are dying. Around thousands of people are get injured. Still, people are suffering with this chemical bomb. So that was exactly happened in a time when government evacuated our town and completely destroyed. And this image of the door is broken there. That is the recollection of my brain to see actually our door, because we had a door like that. And once we evacuated in 1988, we never see the house again. In 1991, when people are going back, we go back and the town was completely flattened. Even there was not any photo from it during this time from 88 to 1991. So this image is actually related to this childhood memory. And then when they evacuated the people, they moved the people to the camps. The government was building the camps for those people from the war zone. And then there was a barbed wire. There's a barbed wire between me, which is sitting in the carpet, and the home in my back, which is destroyed. So there's me in the carpet, but probably it represents of most of the people having experienced it this time, which is, there was a very depressing and very sad time. A lot of people lost their member of their family, either become a victim of the war. Actually, the people are joining the guerrilla movement against Iraqi war. And I lost my older brother in that time. Actually, he was executed in front of us. I was 6 years old when it was happened. So that image basically is related to this kind of childhood memories. That's one of the image actually in our town. This image is took in 1991 or 92. As you see the old remain of the destruction when they basically flattened the town. And then people went back there after First Gulf War, when the Iraqi government was withdraw from the Kurdistan, and Kurdish people are going back to the old place. And if you see, there's a people are just creating a little shelter to live there for that period. And now it's different. Now it's people are actually rebuild the town again. But that was the beginning. Just they want to see, you want to see the remain of the town. Later on, there's another image because I made one work based on one image. Okay. That is the second painting, which is called Departure. This image is related to the time when I decided to leave, which is as you see me flying above the mountains on the carpet. And carpet is in Middle Eastern mythology. It's a kind of tool, imaginary tool to travel in a, everybody hear about Arabian Night stories, flying carpet. So this image actually, when I was crossing the borders, I was thinking about that would be great if you have a flying carpet and going without any problem wherever you want. And this traveling, of course, it was illegally. That's, I have to mention that, because from Iraq, you couldn't travel to anywhere with a passport. There was not any passport or anything. So you have to walk through the borders, and Middle East borders is very dangerous. It's like a steel. If you go on a border, you will be shot dead. And the reason of that, as I showed in the image, the Kurdish area was divided between these four countries. So these borders is very high mountains, and still is a part of the guerrilla movement. So wherever the guards see you there, they will shoot you because they think you are part of the guerrilla movement. So a lot of people actually die in these mountains just because they want to run, they want to get right from where they live, they just want to travel. So that's what happened when I traveled. It was illegally. So I have to travel from Iraqi Kurdistan to Iran, to Irani Kurdistan, and then from Iran to Turkey, which is, there was like around 1 week, more than 1 week traveling in the mountains. Literally, you have to travel during the night and hide during the day. because during the day you have to hide yourself, and night you have to go when everybody sleeps. So it was kind of very tough and not very pleasant traveling. I think I lost many kilos when I arrived in a safe place later. So that is the third painting, which is covering this time of traveling. As you see, the towns from bottom of the painting is destroyed. That is a represent of all these wars. That was a time actually when the second Gulf War started, around that time. The fourth painting is called Droning. Nowadays, there's a lot of news about what is going on in Mediterranean Sea. Like a lot of people are from North Africa and Middle East. They came, and most of them are not making it to come to Europe. They will die. But this journey was continued for ages. But about, I think, if I'm not wrong, about less than 10 years ago, it's catching the media and people are talking about what is going on in these borders. So this painting is representing the soul of all dead people. Basically, all these people are drowning and dying under the sea without any trace, even without their family knows if they are dying or not. Some people, they, after years, they figure out bimbo of their families gone. So as you see, it's me sitting in the bottom of the sea and looking in the sink, the boat in sink, coming down from the sea. So that is about this part of the journey, which is basically, I did this journey. I came from Turkey to Greece, and then from Greece to Italy, I came with a boat. The boats are not safe, and they are the worst type of boats, and your lives completely depend on the luck. Because if the weather is going funny, you will be gone. So it's all depend on the wave of the sea. That was about that. That is the last painting, and this is called Detached. This painting is, as you see, there's no color in it, and there's a floating person with a lot of shadows, gradually leaving and enter to the very dazzling and high-rise building city, which is London. And on front of the person, probably in this image, because my painting, actually, I include a lot of 3D object on top of it, which is a little bit challenging for me. So they are more make sense when you see it in real, because they are almost like a sculpture as well as a painting. So there's a broken glass there, a broken mirror, which is representing of the identity issue for me, which is you are split between all kind of backgrounds. And there's a ladder from the bottom going up, which is, that is the climbing. This is related to the chair when Safi mentioned it. It's during this time when I was waiting for my asylum process, which is a most depressing time. And thanks for art, I could overcome this kind of depressing time of my life by making art and participating in kind of community activity and things. So that was, otherwise there will be a lot, because 8 years I was waiting. And it's like between one court to another court, you have to wait like at least 1 year or 2 years to be heard again by another judge. And then you get a refuse, and then you have to challenge again the court. So that was a kind of very a long and depressing time. And then I was moved like 5, 6 different cities and towns in London during that time. And you were not allowed to work, you were not allowed to travel, you're not allowed to study. So basically you are just wasting your time. So no matter how you prove yourself, no matter where you come from, it's all depend of one person who interview you. If he likes you, you pass through. If not, you'll left behind, and you have to challenge this decision for many years. And that's what I did. After 8 years, I managed to get an answer, a positive answer from the government. And then, so this image was about that. As you see, there's a little carpet in here. They're broken, and that is related to how the identity actually, how the change in identity, as I am a British now. So you gradually, you gradually creating a space between your past culture and new culture. So that's a kind of, I think once you leave home, you always have this issue anyway. You never find this right moment. You always suspend it. So no matter where you go, even in 2014, I decided to go back to Kurdistan and to live there for good again, but I couldn't because I was already split. So once you left, very hard to actually put your feet in the ground steadily again. I try my best, and I feel I am fine now with this issue after all this year, but I think it's very challenging. Okay, as I say, when I sent the proposal, there was a 5 painting and 2 carpets, and now I'm in the first carpets. I choose carpets because traditionally carpet is a very rich part of the culture in Middle East. And as Safi mentioned again, I mentioned it before in another interview, for me, the carpet is the highest visual art we produced in Middle East. And I can't challenge this, what I am saying. And for me, carpet was always like a home. That was the place when we grow on, we sleep on it, we play on it, we just grow on the carpet. So carpet is a part of the Middle Eastern culture, and not just a part, it's almost sacred part, because if you go to any traditional house in Middle East, you have to take out your shoes before you enter to the carpet. That is something we have respect in carpet, because a part of we are praying on carpet, like it's like the place which is you can pray on. But it is the appreciation of the hard work of the craft people, because each carpet is at least taking years to be finished. So that's the appreciation of those people, which is they're going through to make the carpet. So the carpet has a kind of very cultural rooted to Middle Eastern people. So for this particular carpet in here, I was inspired by a few photos of my town was destroyed. So one of them is this photo you see. This is a little boy sitting there and reading a book. Probably these photos took in 1991 when people allowed to go back there, but still there's a remain of the destruction there. So as you see the carpet in here, I use same tone of color. There's no any color in my carpet. I just try to use same kind of black and white, and it is represent of the sad and this kind of feeling. And as you see that the border of the carpet is broken, and all the motifs are falling apart. And this motif is actually is a Kurdish motif. It's known as Haki Motif, which is Haki is a tribe living in north of Iraq. So that was a first carpet called Destruction. And the second carpet, as Safid mentioned it, is called Displacement. And this carpet was inspired by this photo as we see here, which is, this is 1991 when the Kurdish people are have been like uprising against Iraqi Saddam. And then when the Iraqi Saddam was attacking the Kurdish people, and basically almost like millions of people are running from the home and try to get some help from the neighbors, which is, I think this is took in Turkish border. So in this carpet, as you see, I use same kind of tone of color, which is you see from the color to the disappearance of the things. And the shape of the, this motif they call Jaf motif. Jaf is a tribe, the Kurdish tribe, which is, I came from this tribe, which is known as Jaf. So the shape of the Jaf motif is almost like a mountain, it's like a zigzag, because zigzags represent of mountain in some carpet and sometimes represent of water as well. But in here it's more representative of mountains. And the reason I call this placement is rooted back more than this photo, because this placement in Kurdistan, especially in Iraqi Kurdistan, where I come from, it started from 1960s, when gradually Iraqi government moved the people from the highlands, because Iraqi government, they cannot control the mountain areas, and they gradually moved them. And by moving the people, we lost a very, very rich craft culture in those mountain regions, because the weaving tradition we have in Iraqi Kurdistan is mostly from the mountains. And by displace them, actually, we lost these crafts. Now in all Iraqi Kurdistan, I think we have just a few workshops, and they are in a big city. And they are completely detached from those kind of heritage. And this kind of idea to making these carpets gave me the new idea to work with the carpet. Apart of I'm a weaver as well, and I teach courses privately and with some institution. And I decided to create a project which is called Chinin. And the aim of the Chinin actually to revive the weaving craft in Iraqi Kurdistan. Because for this project, I decided to go back to Kurdistan and to make the people there to make my carpet, rather than it's being woven by other part of the world. So I went back to the local people and I talked to them. And as you say, there's a two lady, they weaving the first one, and there's another lady busy with the second one. And this is done in Slemani, in the big city in Iraqi Kurdistan. So that the works are done there. And as I say, if there's any project coming related to the carpet, I will deal with these guys there just to give them some income and try to revive this kind of culture again there. I know it's a big job, but I try my best to help the local people. I think that is the view of the show generally. Unfortunately, because of the COVID, the show is opened from the October 19, something like that, 2020 to May, to end of the May 2021. But because of the COVID, a lot of people cannot make it to see. And for that reason, actually, I make this little booklet just to include all the image and project there, just to share this story of me and my pupil with other people. So if people interested, they can purchase it. It's very cheap, around £5-6. Just I want people to share. I just want to share with the people. But that's the last image of my presentation. And I am willing to take any question, and I'm sure I forgot a lot of things. So hopefully they are coming back to my mind while we are talking. Thanks for listening, and I'm done in here. So I will have to stop. Yeah, it's all yours now, Safid.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shorsh. Now, I have a few questions, but I will leave them for later. And yes, I see some applause going around, and I'll give you this emoticon here as well. Jeff will then, I guess, moderate the discussion. Please indicate in the chat room or raise your hand. You can go to reactions at the bottom of your screen and raise the hand, and then we'll sort of call out your name. Who is going to break the ice? Tom.
Tom.
You're muted, Tom. Please unmute before you start.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thanks, Safid, for the very moving presentation. I would like to break the ice, so to speak, by asking about the process that you went through, the horrendous process of waiting for your asylum, which makes all of us, I would imagine, who are in this group feel totally, I don't know, ashamed, bereft of anything really. That we are part of this. So in fact, I in a sense, I could ask you a question about your new home, as you describe it, namely Britain at the moment, because what seems to be obvious is that you are talking about refuge, seeking home, seeking being looked after, seeking asylum, which is a very important word, talking about the splits of identity and talking about home. And what is happening in Britain, which of course is one of those countries you mentioned with France, who drew those lines in the Middle East. What's happening here seems to be the exact opposite. What seems to be happening is the growth of hostility, of stopping people from moving, and creating a homogeneous idea of some kind of culture or so on. And the horrible news today that in fact the weapons, the increase of weapons in Britain is going to be increased, including a very large percentage of nuclear warheads. And so I wonder how you deal with this and how you place yourself within this peculiar cultural process. Yeah, and okay. So the last question, therefore, is: do you see any hope, as it were, for this Britain that is going in this hostile direction?
Well, that's a very big question for me to answer. But I think we have some friends and groups in here. We sometimes talking about these kind of issues, and we're always talking about the reason behind the migration, because these European government usually they just deal with the migration. They don't deal with the root of it, which is the basic root of the migration. Basically, there's two main things: it's a war and environmental change, or how to call like global warming, or all these kind of things, which is the root of these two problems. They all came from the Western world. Like all the Middle East, we don't have one factory to produce a bullet. All the bullets we kill in each other in Middle East, they're all imported from the Western world or from China or Russia, or whatever. So that's major problems we have. And unfortunately, the new place I landed on is, as you say, they are historically responsible of what has happened to my people. And still they are responsible for what's happened with my people there. So I'm completely clear about that. And but for me, as we talk sometime, this kind of things is very important to not just talking about abstractly. You have to change this one to educating people, to not just talking about that, actually to do the actions, like showing how to make the people as an activist in this particular issue. Like, for example, sending the letter to your MPs, like send the letter. If thousands and millions of people are sending the letter to their MPs and stop selling the weapons, that's it. Well, I know the capitalist system, especially the countries like UK, they are basically rely on selling weapons to survive. But the point is, you have to accept the consequences. When the people are running their home, nobody in the world leaving home for fun. So this is kind of, I don't know what is in my hand to say, but completely I see the blood on the British government, not the British people, but the British government. Throughout the history, it's not just about my people. They are involved in a lot of atrocity around the world. And the point is, you can't blame the people, because the blame is, the people are choosing the government, which is very important to actually awaken people. But don't just go to the show or go to the lecture or listen to some people talking about, actually do things. Like practically do things. As I say, simple things to do. Just write a letter to your MP, and millions of people write the MP, and then that will become an issue. And they are talking about, but I don't know. I don't know. It's out of my hand. But I completely agree with your point. And British government is responsible for a lot of things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Luke, you've got a question.
Thanks. Thank you for this presentation. It was so fascinating. I'm going to start with like kind of more of a comment that will morph into a question, but I was really fascinated by the use of the carpet as a medium and the way that you have honed in on that as such an important signifier, and how it's such a centerpiece of so many of the images you showed us. And what it brought to mind for me was another historical example of contemporary art that used the carpet as a way to convey geopolitics and identity. And I grabbed this as a visual aid. I'm talking about Alighiero Boetti, who's an Italian artist who wove these are giant carpets that are maps where each nation state is represented by its flag. And this was a project that he did over, I think, like 30 years. And what was interesting about it, you can see these are some earlier ones. The flags change, and as the geopolitics of the world change over that time, the maps change and the carpets change. These were all woven in Afghanistan by Afghan women weavers, and they were inscribed along the border with Italian and Dari messages. And it's another instance of, using the carpet to explore themes of mobility, right, and identity and borders, which seems to be a huge part of what you're also exploring. So I'm curious where you see yourself fitting into this tradition of carpets being used to convey those ideas in contemporary art, and how much, I guess, of a community you've found currently that is using the carpet to, or using carpet imagery to explore those themes, and how much you kind of have interacted with other artists from other backgrounds using carpets in that way in your practice or in your research, you know, as inspiration or not.
Thanks. Well, I have seen some artwork or some artists, they use the medium carpet to work with. But as I mentioned it, carpet is one of my speciality. So I actually weave carpet and I design carpet. So I'm more in a traditional sense, because I teach actually hand weaving carpet, and I am very familiar with the symbolic meaning of the motifs. So I don't bring a kind of very different images in a carpet. I just use the pre-exist motifs, but I just work with them, because those images, because the carpet has a lot of symbolic meaning, and it is a completely independent language. Basically, if you could read the carpet, that's completely independent. So I try to still keep this boundary to don't express all my idea on carpet. So I want to respect the tradition, keeping the motifs there, but using according to the contemporary issues. As I tried it in these two carpet, to just use the old traditional motifs, but move them around and changing the color and changing the motifs and those things. And if I add one thing in these maps you just showed me, I am sure from the beginning until the end, there's no map of Kurdistan there.
Well,
Because we are not,
notable.
because we are not exist in a modern map at all.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'm aware about their works.
Mhm.
Probably visually they're interesting, but fundamentally I'm not agree with them.
Thank you, Luke. Tiu is going to be up next, but right before that, Shorsh, just we had some questions about where we can, where someone could purchase or pick up this booklet you talked about. Do we have to go to Nunhead for those of us that are a little further away? How do we get our hands on this?
I can't post it away. Just send me the email. I can just post it, and that's it. Because I already post a few for Germany, for abroad. So you just contact me through my email, and then we can sort out.
Great. We'll send that to everybody following this this presentation.
And my email.
With your email. We'll yes, you can put it in the chat, and we can also distribute that later if you're okay with that.
So what was the question? Sorry, I didn't. Maybe
the question is coming now from Tiu.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So I thought you want to. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Tiu, please unmute.
Yeah, I just did. Can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to thank you for this wonderful magic carpet ride to your culture, your people, your experience, you know, your struggle. It really gave me a lot of insight into a place that I just have very sketchy knowledge of, and really, it's really amazing art that you've created, and I'm very grateful. The question I had has to do with sort of being a refugee and living in some kind of, but my own experience was I'm part of the Estonian diaspora, but I don't remember Estonia because I came to the States when I was 2. But I noticed among my parents' peers that there was that they were kind of like among the walking wounded for their lives, and not that they were pathetic in any way. They were very brave, but I thought that it was very difficult for them to recreate a home and a family and a community, or to feel part of those new communities that they were, you know, that they moved to willingly, you know, and they couldn't go back in their case for many years. And I just wanted to ask you, if it isn't too personal a question, how did you recreate your community and your home and your extended family once you had left, and of course you were kind of in limbo for such a long period of time. How did you do that? And again, it's kind of a personal question, but I'd certainly be interested in knowing.
No, that's completely fine, because actually this project is all ended up to be a personal project, so I have to explain well. I think, as I mentioned it, art was one of the very great support for me during this time when I was struggling. Because, well, I was not allowed to study or to do anything, but at least I was allowed to paint in my room. So that was not forbidden yet. I don't know about now. But art was helping to overcome this kind of depressing time. And I had some friends still around during that time, so we could visit and meet, and so that was another help. And after all this time, so the question is, how could I manage to reestablish again? Well, I feel like home, as I mentioned it in 1988, when we left our town and it's been destroyed. So literally there is no one spoon left from the childhood memory for me. So very naturally, I was very good to detach myself with the material things. So still I am like that. I can easily detach myself with a city, with a town, but things are inside will stay with me. The image, the memory with the pupil, but the place is no matter a lot for me. And later on, when I did some kind of yoga, I realized, oh, I'm a monk actually, because I can detach myself from the things easily. But I think that was maybe this kind of memory is helping me to reestablish again. Because home for me is more in a community. Once I find the nice people to live with, once I find the nice people around me, and then I feel a sense of home. That's my experience, because a physical world, it still matters. It's not true to say not, but I think I could detach myself easy with the physical places. I could just carry my memory. It will coming back sometime, but I mean, I'm allowed to go back, so I go and travel there, visit my friends and my family, still some of them there. So I'm in touch with there and here, but still is a kind of, as I say, once you left home, it's quite hard to completely put your feet in the ground. So that is something I think I cannot do, and I think it's very hard. One time you are a refugee, and it will stay with you. We have a lot of histories, like the Jews for 1,000 years. Once they are refugee, they always feel like they are refugees. It's there, and it's become a part of their DNA. So once you are a refugee, it's just stay in you. But I think I try my best to integrate with the society and to create a new life. It's not new life, it's extended of my life, basically, because it's wrong to say it's a new life, because life's all one and it's all experience. So it's a part of this extension of the experience. So I don't know if I answered you.
You did. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Christiane, you have a question, and then Belinda, and then Lisa.
George, I was very impressed by your presentation and particularly by your art. And many of the things you talked about resonate with me. I'm not a refugee, but as a Palestinian, it resonates with me. The issue of war, conflict, dispossession, deportation, exile, and so on. And the fact also that it was the British and the French who were the root cause of this kind of calamity that has befallen the Kurdish people. So I wanted to, pardon?
And Palestinian.
Yeah. So during your presentation, I wanted to ask whether you could go back home, and you said that you could. So the
Yes.
question is, you go back home. So how do you feel when you go back home? What is it that you feel? And then when you fly back to the UK, do you feel like you're flying back home? Or so which is it, you know? When you fly into Kurdistan, how do you feel? And how do you feel about going back, and whether going back means you're flying back home? So I'd just like to know a bit more about that.
I think each time when I go back, I feel like I go back home.
Mm-hmm.
But the last time when I come back, I feel like I am coming home as well.
Oh, wow.
Because I am married now, and my wife was pregnant when I was there for the project for making carpets. So when I was there, I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm in fire, so I have to go back. So I feel like I have two homes now. One of them based on my memory, and one of them is actual house and home I have in London. So I feel like it's a part of the split personality, isn't it? I hope I'm not a schizophrenic. but I feel like I am having this two sense of home, one of them based on my memory. When I go home, it's sometimes disappointing. It's always, I feel the sense of home until I land there. And then when I'm actually going there, when I am counting the people and the area, like my towns completely not look like my childhood town anymore. So I feel disappointed when I'm there. But as you say, you're talking mostly about the spirit feeling or psychological feeling, how you feeling. So I have this feeling when I go, when I'm closing home in the airplane, I feel like I'm going home, but I get disappointed when I'm around after a week. So that's the feeling. And as I say, once you left the home, you always suspended in the air. But I feel like I am having a two home now. One of them in my memory, and one of them in here with my wife.
Thank you. Well put, yeah.
That was a beautifully articulated answer to a question that many of us who have, many of us think about all the time. That was the most eloquent, accurate answer I've ever heard to a question like that. Thank you very much. Belinda, you had a question about skills, and would you like to answer that? Would you like to ask that, Belinda, or shall I read it for you?
Oh, well, read it maybe.
Okay, Belinda says, inspiring.
Yeah, I can come in as well.
Thank you, Belinda.
It's about, I guess, which story do you tell through this beautiful art of weaving when you are in Kurdistan too? It's a brilliant project, and it's really inspiring to hear that you are working with people in that home to do the carpet weaving and kilims. But do you try to preserve the old stories that were told in the traditional patterns, or being very, powerfully touched by the stories that you're telling in London with this less regular, more storytelling that I can understand, perhaps the modern patterns that are taking the traditional elements but then telling another story, a different story? So I'd just love to hear your thoughts on, is it how important, and how do you weigh up keeping traditional weaving and storytelling and the stories that were told before, and a more maybe updated kind of storytelling that you're using here in London?
I feel, because I study traditional art, and once you study traditional art in Prince's Foundation, they brainwash you. So you how to say, you appreciate the tradition a lot. And because you're appreciating the tradition a lot, so you have a lot of hesitate to change it. Because it being, like when you call something traditional art, it's going through thousands of years of experience of other peoples until reaching to us. So once you see the carpet, you already accounting the perfect visual image, because this image being through the 1,000 years of mistakes and correct and mistakes and correct. So once you see the Persian carpet in here, it's not just woven by one person, it's woven by 1,000 years of experience. That's why the final piece is amazing. Or you see the Islamic geometry, or you see any kind of traditional crafts or arts, it's not done by one artist, it's done through the millions of correction and mistakes until it's getting to this sense of perfection. So for me, to change in this, that's what I was trying to answer this, as a gentleman was asking about motifs, and I see this kind of mapping on carpet. And for me, I cannot do this. I feel like this is something you breaking the line. And as I say, those motifs very perfectly manifested there. So you don't need to provoke it. You don't need to change it. I know modern art is all based on provocative and distraction, but I try my best to not be a part of this world. And I don't know if there was an answer of the question.
I guess I was building, but saying something different to Luke. I think you have changed it. So your carpets are not traditional.
Yeah. Sorry about that. That idea, what I did, because this carpet is not nice anymore. It's been destroyed. It's been destructed. It's been, I mean, like in the sense of the traditional way to see this carpet, it's actually not good anymore.
Okay.
And that is I try to tell the story of my story, or the pupil's story there, through the object, which is they've been used by those people for thousands of years. So I try to use same mediums for those people to speak through the same kind of motives, rather than I add in a kind of aeroplane or bombs or things. I don't want to change the images there, but I just want to show this kind of extended tradition, but the consequences of the war, what has happened with the things. So those carpets I made, it is not a functional, it's more decorative basically. But you have to know, traditionally carpet is functional, it's something to use, to walk on it, to run on it. So it's become, in the end, it's become a canvas, it's become a place to express yourself on it. But still, I know I break the line, but I don't try to break it too much. I try to hold the tradition still there, not completely adding different kind of images there. I just try to use the traditional images. And thanks for participating, because I know Lisa, we meet a few times.
Great. And Lisa's question, Lisa Heck, are you able to speak?
Yes, but you can read it.
No, Lisa, how about you go for it?
Okay, I will go for it, just a moment. So thank you so much, Shorsh, for your presentation. I really enjoyed it, especially the weaving of the carpet. As a Palestinian too, I can relate. So I wanted to know more about who is the audience you work with. Are they migrants or are they locals? This is the first one. And then I wanted to know more if is it a way of putting Kurdistan on the map, because you were disappointed that you didn't see the map of your country, the same issue as we Palestinians sometimes. So is it a way like using the contemporary art of putting Kurdistan, and is it too a way of like narrating the history, like people together working together to narrating the history? Do you find it as a way, or how it goes?
I got the first question, but I didn't understand the second one.
Which one?
No, I didn't understand the second question. If you repeat it, sorry about
that. The putting of your country on the map, this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like promoting your country as a destination image, or letting people know more about it.
I didn't put the map of my country in the carpet.
No, it's, I think, Luke, when he presented the book.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Is it a way? Yeah.
Well, no, I don't do this kind of weaving thing. So no, I'm never making a map on carpet. If I make a map, I will make it on paper.
Shorsh, I think the question is, I think what Lisa's asking is, through your work with the carpets, is this a way of creating awareness of Kurdistan to be on the intellectual map for others, if I got that right, Lisa?
Oh, yeah. That exactly. I try to reconnect same issues with this craft, like connecting with the people, with the audience. And your first question was about audience. Actually, my audience, I'm working with, I don't have any representative galleries, but I show my works in different places, different gallery, different institutions, and I think hopefully other pupils see it, and my aim is to more people get aware about what is going on in Middle East, which is, I think, rooted back, probably Kurdish and Palestinian, the very, very well understand what is meaning to don't have a country in Middle East. Because if we live in Switzerland without country, there's no problem. If you live in UK without country, there's no problem. Because the point, the identity issues there is that they don't accept you as who you are. Like they accept me in Iraq if I say I'm Iraqi. But if I say, well, I'm an Iraqi Kurdish, you will be persecuted. But in Britain, I can't say I am a Kurdish British. There's no any problem with that. So the identity issue in Middle East is very, very complicated. Like in Turkey, still when we are talking, if you wear the Kurdish dress, they put you in a jail. Not even don't speak, just wear a Kurdish dress, walking in the street, they put you in a jail. So that is the level of the persecution in Middle East. And Palestinian, probably we all see what is going on there because of the media. But at least they are lucky at the media. Media sometimes they talk about the Kurdish issue. Nobody even knows about it. Like we don't have any media, worldwide media, to talk about the Kurdish issue. And that is our basically problem. So whenever we are struggling, they call us terrorists. And the only media who covering this, it's the media of the local countries. Like for example, BBC, they refer of the Turkish media to see how the Kurdish are behaving there. The Iraqi used to be, through the Iraqi government, they deal with the issue of Kurdish, but we don't have a direct media from Western world to understand what is going on with the Kurdish issue. Still, we don't have this. Yeah, basically my aim is with this project was not about me, basically about to become a voice of those voiceless people. That was my aim basically on this project with the Imperial War Museum. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Safet has our closing question for you, Shorsh, and then we'll make some final concluding remarks.
Well, first of all, Shorsh, thank you so much again for showing us your amazing, amazing art. I really do love it, everything I've seen so far. Now, I have a lot of questions, so I'll just try to restrict myself to two. I've been writing them down. It really is thought-provoking, this presentation. So one thing that's, I guess, first of all, I wanted to perhaps relate it to some of my research, because when I read the title of the talk you're giving us today, the first image in my mind were the mountains in southeastern Bosnia, and very much related to waves of migration in different periods, in the First World War, in the Second World War, in the 1990s, and so on. And these mountains really were, as you describe, for the Kurdish people, friends. And I spoke to one of my interlocutors, told me about how he, as a 3-month-old baby, was carried into the mountains in Gatsko in southeast Bosnia by his grandmother. And he was carried into the caves in the mountains to hide. And then I located in archival material, these same caves were hiding places before in previous conflicts. So they were traditional hiding places. So for me, this Kurdish saying really sort of made a lot of sense in different ways. But the most striking, perhaps, thing in that conversation was the mountain into which his grandmother hid him as a baby was also called in Bosnian Baba, which means grandmother. And so my first question was about the place names and the names of the mountains, and perhaps if they have significant meaning. Like, for example, earlier today, I was Googling how to properly pronounce your name. And there are different suggestions. But then Google suggested also that your name means resistance. And I'm not sure if that's right, but
revolution.
Revolution. Okay, so you know, I wonder how these kind of names of the landscape and personal names, how they kind of create certain histories. And then maybe I'll just leave it there without asking any of my other 8 questions, but hopefully in our next conversation I'll get to ask you all of this. Thank you again.
No problem. Well, shall I answer? Okay, well, I mean, maybe my dad was very ambitious. He called me a revolution because he wanted me to actually revolt and create in a greater Kurdistan. But I ended up living in South London and making art. Maybe I disappointed my dad with that. But I feel like a name has an impact. Maybe deep down you don't feel it, but yeah, I feel like name is creating a psychological impact. So it's very important to give a good name to the new generation. Thanks. I think that was a question. Yeah, that was the answer.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Shorsh. This was very inspiring, humbling, and exceeded every expectation I think that any of us had for expanding our minds and our hearts today. And thank you for sharing such a personal story. And I know that we all look forward to connecting, if not with you personally, through you in your art when next we're able to visit the galleries. I will be circulating an email that will have your contact information out, as well as perhaps this would be a good idea for us to think over the next couple of days about actions we can take towards peace and different avenues, rather than just reflecting on this and moving to our next Zoom meeting, what we can actually do for action to help support these incredibly powerful feelings and emotions we all have now. So we'll follow up with that. In the world of Xenia, we are looking forward to our next event as well, and we will update you all through the usual channels on that. We have loaded Christiane's and Sarah Bonfanti's talks onto xeniaseries.com. In the About Us, you can see an archive of now 5 or 6 of the talks we've had out there. And just again, thank you all for contributing to this wonderful expression time that we had today, and to sharing this story in the chat. Everyone is thanking you, Shorsh.
Thanks everybody. Thanks for you guys to give me this opportunity. That was amazing.
It's wonderful. So thank you all to this community, and look forward to seeing you on our next session, and look forward to seeing you all in person when permittable.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Thanks a lot.